agency, any of our allied partners. There was a company, I had to change it in the book, Glenn. It is not called TIP, Total Intelligence Paradigm. One of my guys who led me to this thing and laid it out for me, when he read the book, he said, you can't put this in there. He said, it will track right back to me. You got to call it something else. So I changed the name. Anyway, what TIPS is, what it's based on, is a real software system where they took the Promise system and gave it a brain. They gave it artificial intelligence so that this thing could not only hunt for data, it could anticipate. If there was information about an attack that the government was afraid was going to happen, this thing would start going through its citizenry, trying to figure out which of the citizens were best equipped and most likely to commit whatever crime it is that the government or the intel agency thought was going to be committed.
We're down to Minority Report.
That's exactly what it is. I was told by one of my sources that they actually had a successful apprehension of a subject using this new software, and that the government in question who had sponsored the building of this software, it's not ours, it is in the Western world, was giddy beyond belief that now all they needed to do was somebody to whisper during an interrogation that something might be about to happen, and they set this thing loose on its own populace. It's terrifying.
Brad, I talked to some people at Google who are quite frankly afraid of Google. Google is a fine company. It's done a lot of great things. It's a great search. That's the only search engine that really works. But if you read in the Plex? In the Plex. Yeah, if you read that and you read it with a mind of the future, if you've ever read any Ray Kurzweil, The Age of Spiritual Machines is one that everybody should read. If you've ever read any Ray Kurzweil, who is a futurist, who is works for Google and Microsoft and everything else, and then you read in the Plex, they're creating artificial intelligence, and they're with our government.
Glenn, I will even take you in another direction on this same thing. I would say that if you're recommending that people read those two books, they also need to read Search and Destroy, which is a real scathing expose of Google. Search and Destroy, great book. Listen, when we talk about tips, the thing that's frightening here is that Google has partnered up with the NSA, and what they're trying to do is create their own Skynet, and what they're using is the millions of searches on Google every day. How you search, what you ask a question, when you go to that Google search toolbar and you punch in your question for what you're looking on the net, that is teaching this artificial intelligence thing that Google is building how to think. They're trying to teach this artificial brain how to think like people. And I got to tell you, Google's done some great things, but I have a real problem with a company whose motto is don't be evil, but their mascot is a T-Rex. I
have a real problem with any company that is in bed with the United States government.
Absolutely.
There's no. I'm sorry. Private companies are private companies. When you're in bed with the United States government as tightly as Google is, and you're doing things as spooky as Google. I mean, there's a reason why Google is getting kicked out or coming under economic fire in almost every country in the world. I mean, all these countries are saying, hey, this goes against civil rights. This goes against privacy. You can't do these things. Here's our country is sending that stuff over to other countries. It's frightening stuff.
It's not only frightening, Glenn, but there's one step in this whole, when we talk about the Promise system.
Hold on, because we'll get to that here in just a second. And what do you say to people who say, oh, it's no big deal? That next.
Glenn Beck.
Mercury.